Hey everybody out there, my name is Dragnix, and this is Overwatch Fridays. Basically, I plan to play a good amount of Overwatch over the next several weeks. A lot of people know that I have played a lot of TF2 over its lifetime, over 3,000 hours. And now that Overwatch has come out, I feel like it's a good time to transition to another Team Fortress 2-like shooter. I will still play Team Fortress 2, I'm still in UGC Highlander, but I do want to play this game for fun. So you're probably asking, okay Dragnix, when is the review of Overwatch gonna come out? You gonna take 2 weeks to, break it down and go through all the heroes and figure out exactly what's going on? Will it be on the day of because of the beta? Neither of those answers are right. In fact, I won't be officially reviewing Overwatch. And you're probably sitting there going, wait, why wouldn't you officially review Overwatch? You're going to be playing the game a bunch. You're going to be able to cover the game critically. You will be able to bring your TF2 experience into the mix and be able to critically compare the two games. So why wouldn't you cover it? That's the topic for today's video, is the differences between me critically covering a game and a game that I play for fun, because there are differences. Now, don't take that as I don't have fun while critically covering a game. I have a bunch of fun. Danganronpa 2, things like Star Fox Zero. Even though I gave it a mid-score, I enjoyed my time, even though I wanted to throw the Wii U controller across the room during the first playthrough. But when I cover a game critically on the channel, things are a little bit different because I'm going to look at a game at several angles. I'm not just playing the game that I want to play in terms of if I'm playing a game that allows for multiple types of gameplay. Stealth versus action versus archery versus, something like Skyrim where you can have multiple different builds. I'm not playing the one that I would want to play normally. I'm playing all of them so that I can give you guys the information in terms of, archers like this game? Will people who usually like to snipe like this game? And that's a bit of a difference from some other reviewers who just play the game how they like to play. Is that true for all reviewers? No, of course not. When I look at Total Biscuit's reviews, reviews first impressions, of course he'll say it's a first impressions, but it's the kind of critical coverage that you want to see. He does look at it in multiple angles. Yes, he doesn't like platformers, for example, but when he does cover a platformer, I do think that he tries to find the strengths of the game and convey that to the audience, and not just play the game that he would want to play. Of course, he will play games that are more suited to him, at least on his channel. But with that said, if a game is big enough and wants people's opinions about it, I don't think he shies away from it. He's done videos on things like The Division that may not be up his alley, but he does still critically cover them. The crafting of my review system has to do with the idea of objectivity versus subjectivity. Objectivity, of course, is being without bias, giving a game the best chance to succeed. And the idea is that you can never be 100% objective. You are playing the game. Your opinion is embedded within your own experience. And to a certain extent, that's true. And I've seen that defense be thrown at things like the Uncharted 4 review by the Washington Post that gave it a 4 out of 10. Things like the Ashes of the Singularity review that was done by GameSpot. The Stellaris review done by IGN. It's their opinion. You can't tell them that their opinion is invalid. And yes, there is a certain truth to that. With that said, the core issue that I see in the gaming world regarding reviews has to do with the objectivity versus the subjectivity argument. The idea that an objective review, an unbiased review that doesn't have the opinion preformed based off of factors that may be outside the game's control, versus a subjective review where the actual opinion and the experience of the player is brought full circle in terms of the review content. The whole reason that my review system is crafted as it is to try to bring both sides of it in. Being objective in the base score in terms of the main opinion of the game, but bringing in the subjective portions into it so that the score can be adjusted. The thing that has bothered me about this entire discussion is that it seems to be one way or the other. People want 100% objective, people want 100% subjective, and that there's no seemingly middle. And from my experience in life, and my experiences over the last several years in the gaming world, is that when you get that extremism, both sides are usually wrong. It's usually an answer somewhere in the middle where there is some compromise, but understanding that yes, both sides do have a point. Let's take an example of an extreme in terms of the objectivity part. One review that I think does not have any objectivity whatsoever, and that is the infamous God Hand review from IGN. For those who don't know, and you can look it up online, I'll put a link in the description below, God Hand got a 3 out of 10, which is considered a cult classic among many gamers, done by Clover Studios. It got a 3 out of 10 when a baby simulator game that was rushed to market got a 45 out of 100 from IGN. And people always put those images side to side and say, good job IGN, you really screwed this up. One of the common defenses of that review is, well, that's how he felt. That's how he felt playing the game, and how can you tell me otherwise? If you're doing a review professionally, if you're doing it for the sake of reviewing it for monetization purposes or for critically covering the game, I would expect you to have a certain level of expertise and to understand that a game may play differently than how you first perceive it. And I think in particular with that IGN review, it was clear to me that the reviewer had no idea how the game was supposed to play and didn't listen to the game at all. He tried to play the game as a pure brawler, which God Hand, if you have played it, it is not a brawler at all. You have to have technique. You have to have a lot of, finesse to it that doesn't necessarily exist within a pure brawler type game. And the thing is that his forcing of that mechanic like that made the game worse for him. But he never considered the fact that the game wasn't something different. I think a lot of the valid criticisms of reviews nowadays has to do with that lack of objectivity, the lack of the idea that, yeah, the game doesn't play how you initially wanted it, but does it have another strength? Does it have a strength in its, online system? Does it have a strength if you play stealth-wise, if you play more as a puzzle game, for example? It's this inability to be flexible that I have major problems with. Like that whole God Hand review, it's just like you wanted it to play a certain way, and just because it didn't play your way doesn't mean the game is bad. Now, does that mean you would necessarily recommend it to the type of gamer that you are? Of course not. You don't want to tell somebody that, yeah, your gaming experience is invalid. But with that said, you still try to find a way to say, look, the game has this strength, X, Y, and Z, and I looked at it in a way that was unbiased. In that case, I really do think there was a major problem with the reviewer, that he had a bias in question, he refused to let it go, and thus he got a 3 out of 10, and I don't think the game deserved that because he didn't give the game a fair chance. Now, on the flip side, let's take that Solaris review that got a lot of shit in terms of IGN. It got a 6.8, and yet the detail of the review is there. The game in question and the reviewer in question went through a good amount of some of the strengths and weaknesses of the game. I think it went through and said, hey, look, I find this to be a strength. I find X, Y, and Z to be a strength. But when it comes together in an overall package, I don't necessarily think the game works as well as some other people think it does. And people were giving that guy shit. They were saying, TB, Paradox, he obviously has something out for them, even though he works a podcast with the guys over at Paradox. And I didn't see it. Yeah, the game got a lower score, but he had the detail to back it up. And to me, it was clear he objectively went through and said, look, strength, 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 weakness, weakness, weakness. I don't see the draw over games like maybe Ashes of the Singularity. And a lot of this has to do, in my mind, with the lack of evolution of the scoring system itself. And that is why I put the scoring system in place on this channel that I did. The fact is that there are so many gamer types out there. First-person shooter people, story-driven people, archers. Yes, down to archery. I know somebody who plays pretty much archers in every single game that he plays. I'm looking at you, Hallorim, of course. And yet, when I try to give a score for only a general audience, of course the people who are more specialized are going to have a problem. But why does it have to be this way? Why does it have to be so that that one score is for everyone? Why can't we give scores based off of the game's strengths so that we match the game to the user? The argument that's brought up against that is that, well, people have their own strengths in terms of the analysis in question. A strategy person is going to do a better job of breaking down a strategy game, and a person who is a strategy gamer may not be able to have the skills to be able to break down a first-person shooter. Yeah, that is true. But if you're in a professional position, if you're in a position where you're looking at a game from a professional standpoint, you should be a expert in your field, and you should be able to adjust to the gameplay in question. You are the expert. You are acting as the expert to the gaming audience. If you don't have that expertise, then I think you do need to step aside. You don't want to put people into boxes. You don't want to make somebody a first-person shooter reviewer, because guess what? Not only will it get stale and unfortunately not give the game a due chance if they keep on playing first-person shooters over and over and over and over again. That may not be the case for everyone, but that is the case for some. You do want them to experiment with, games. Say, hey, look, this game is a story-driven game, and I'm a first-person shooter person, but I see the strengths. I see why this person would like this game. And you want to be able to do that so that maybe those elements can cross over in a first-person shooter, for example. And let me circle back to how I started this. Yes, Overwatch I will be playing. I will be critically analyzing a lot of the elements over the next several weeks on these Fridays, looking at the game in terms of balance, looking at the skill set of Junkrat and how he is a well-defined character, not only from a story standpoint, but he can do a lot of things that people don't give him credit for. I will be making a strategy guide for Junkrat because he's one of my favorite characters in the game right now. Yes, I know he's like a demo man, but he's also not a demo man, which I think people are not giving him credit for. The thing is that in those cases, I am covering the game critically, but I'm covering it from one specific angle. If I were to cover it as a review portion, I would have to cover every single angle. There's a lot that would go into that. And while it would be useful for some, there are certain games that help reset the palette in terms of review. Yes, that sounds a little bit weird. I play a game, I enjoy it, it would think that I would want to share that experience with you guys. And I will be sharing the experience with you guys. It's just that from a critical standpoint, from a consumer standpoint, I'm going to be doing it at a much smaller level than I would a professional review that I do. I will be doing things like the Junkrat, tutorial guide and things like that. The thing is that when I look at that game, I'm going to be looking at it in a much different light than I would be a professional review. And frankly, there are situations that I just want to have fun and not think about all the details that I need to think about when doing a formal review. I'm sorry, guys, there are situations where I do just want to have fun. I think it's best to leave you with an example of what my review process goes through. Let's start with the sound in the game. Now, sound seems to be something that is very easy to do in terms of review. Is the sound good? Is the quality of the sound good? Can you hear it? Is there directional sound? But it's more than that when I'm looking at it in review. There will be times that I actually turn off the sound entirely. And why is that? Well, I want to see what kind of impact it has on gameplay. If I'm playing without sound and I'm not able to react as fast in terms of somebody firing their gun Roadhog is here, that is a clue of the sound design that, okay, I was able to use that as a clue. If I'm able to play the same way without that sound, then maybe the sound design isn't as impactful as other sound design can be, that I am not using the sound to my advantage, and maybe the game is lacking there. That's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, where I'm, adjusting the sound values against each other to say, does the music overshadow it even at a lower tone? And I do think that's important to really bring the strength of the game, out. Is there a possibility that I'm making a mountain out of a molehill in that case and that I'm overanalyzing? Of course there is. But I think when you go to that detail, you start to get an understanding of what the game's strength is and be able to match it well with the player. And again, I've always said this, there are so many games out there nowadays, and there are so many good ones out there, that matching the game to the type of player, as opposed to making a general statement about this is the game of the year, this is Gone Home, 10 out of 10, that's where I think the biggest problems with the review lie. Because yeah, a 10 out of 10 for some people in terms of Gone Home, yeah, it may work for them. For the main general audience, yeah, I don't think so. And when you tell me that no, it's a 10 out of 10 in every situation, I'm going to disagree with you, because every game has its strength. Every game has its weakness. Now, Danganronpa 2 is a strength altogether. That's a, 97 out of 100 no matter what. I'm kidding, of course, but you all should play Danganronpa 2. Anyway, I know this is a little bit of a more hectic and a little bit more weirdly cut video. I know that this is Overwatch Fridays, and I'll have a little bit more Overwatch-related content on Fridays when I'm able to do those videos. It does come out next week, and I can get more footage at that point. I think one of the first things I want to do is make a Junkrat tutorial video, like I said, because I think a lot of people play him wrong. But over the next week, you should see more content from me in terms of reviews. I know I only got 2 done this week. This week was sort of a recovery week. Yeah, 2 reviews is still a lot for some people, but I felt like I was, stepping back a little bit to try to get an understanding. I wrote a bunch of emails to get, new games, try to understand some sponsorship possibilities that actually make sense after the whole G2A thing. And honestly, just trying to put everything in perspective right now in terms of what I want to do with this channel to make it work. Currently on the schedule for next week is the Song of Seasons Episode 1, Orion Legend of the Coriodan. I know I've had that for a while now, I just haven't gotten to it. And Exhibitor, which is actually coming out that week. That may change. I'm not going to promise all those at this point, but I'm going to do my best. And of course, I'll be playing more Overwatch as it comes out. I will be streaming it on Tuesday when it officially comes out. I think it's Tuesday at least. And I'll be playing with my friends at that point. All right, I will see you all later. Thanks for listening to me ramble. I know this is a longer video, but sometimes it's good to just rant. Thanks for watching. Like the video, share it with a friend, and subscribe if you want more content like this. In the description below, you'll find the Steam review accompanying this vid, along with social media that you can follow me on, Twitter, Google+, and Facebook groups. And if you want to support the channel, click that Patreon on the left of the screen. And remember, keep on gaming.